Here we go. Here we go. All right.
All right, so now we land at this is probably the gateway, or this is the first Slayer album, maybe for a lot of people. It was for me, Rain and Blood, '86. First album on Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons, right? Def Jam Records. This is produced by Rick Rubin. It's sort of the defining Slayer album, if you will.
Yeah.
The production is cleaner and more powerful. The drums are very loud and upfront on this. So,
You know those two guys at the front? They have hard-ons. Did you know that?
no.
If you look down at the
I'm learning
bottom,
all these things about. I'm never going to be able to look at these Slayer album covers the same way again.
Kerry came. If you hold it up again, you'll see that the two dudes at the bottom, they have these kind of black snake-like hard-ons sticking out. Can you see that?
Uh,
Kerry came out and talked about this. Said, "Yeah, no one, the censors didn't spot it, but no, you would never get away with that normally." Anyway, interesting. Yeah, the artwork is
yeah,
very
you're
serious.
right.
Yeah, it's like the guy was called Larry Carroll, I think, experimental political artist, as far as I understand. Slayer sort of lucked out, I think, finding him. No disrespect for those guys who I've met many, many times, but I don't think they really thought too deeply about the art direction of their band, really. But they found this incredible artist, Larry Carroll, who did this very, very serious piece of art. It's like Guernica, you know, the Picasso painting. It's very, very deep, very, very frightening. When I did the book, I called it The Bloody Reign of Slayer, you know, as a reference to this album, because it is their definitive sort of statement. And although it was quite self-indulgent, I devoted an entire chapter of 5,000 words, to my thoughts about which was better thrash album of all time, Master of Puppets or Rain and Blood. And that chapter has subsequently been reproduced online. You can find it. And in a sense, it's a little bit, what's the word? Not unprofessional, but a little bit self-indulgent to spend so much time talking about it. But I wanted to, right? It's my book. I thought, what the hell, I'm going to do it. And actually, it bears analysis because so many fans of Rain and Blood are also fans of Master of Puppets. And my view, which bears repeating here, was that Master of Puppets is majestic and all the stuff I said earlier, and beautiful actually, whereas Rain and Blood is just horribly aggressive, but streamlined as well. It's not like being hit with a blunt instrument. It's like being pierced with a very, very fine, sharp precision instrument. The most amazing triumph, really. And they've talked many times about how it's just a complete accident. They just had their 10 best songs. They also talk about how Rick Rubin encouraged them to play faster. They talked about feeding Dave Lombardo with like sugary sweets, you know, snacks so they can play faster. Um, and as you said earlier, the mix is quite high with drums and low on bass. That actually works. I think you have to choose. You have to choose what you're going to do. The drums are actually higher on South of Heaven, which we'll come to in a minute. But I'm quite often asked about what makes a band successful, an album successful. And the short answer is the image has to be good, the songs have to be memorable, the production has to be first class, the lyrics have to be provocative, it has to come out at the right time, and this ticks all those boxes, right? It's it's a genre-defining record and an era-defining record in a way that very few albums are. I don't even know if I need to go through it track by track because as a piece of work, it is it's hard to measure, it's hard to quantify. I've become such a fanboy about this record and I get very serious about it when it really shouldn't be. I shouldn't be because it's a bit of fun. But I have a lot invested in this album, Rain and Blood, like so many Slayer fans do. So very briefly, there was controversy about the opening song, Angel of Death, because it refers to Auschwitz. And it also talks about Josef Mengele, who was a Nazi doctor who performed a bunch of terribly, abusive experiments on the inmates of Auschwitz, the worst kind of human torture. And they sang about that, or they wrote about it, and Araya sang about it. And as a result, a few members of the press accused them of Nazi sympathies, which made no sense. They weren't endorsing these historical events, they were writing about them. And then you go into Piece by Piece, which is just a bit of gore. It's just about being dismembered. Kerry uses the term modulistic, which was a made-up word meaning modular. So you're dismembered in a modular manner, limb by limb. And I know that because I asked him about it. And Scott Ian of Anthrax wrote about this word modulistic, how it always bothered him. So I was able to write to him and say, Scott, I know what it means because I asked Gary. So that was cool. Necrophobic is just this insanely fast bit of music that um, that has all these little high points in it. There's there's a little bit of a delay on the final notes of the solo, which is repeated a couple of times. It's loops. That always makes me crazy. And I think that goes to something like 200 BPM or some nonsensical speed. I think it's
Crazy.
Slayer's fastest until they did Ditto Head in '94. Um, and then it goes into Ultra Sacrifice. And then it goes into Criminally Insane, which has this double tempo acceleration at the beginning, which, and then it just goes on and on. And it's just, every single track is a fully formed masterpiece, if you ask me. Not everyone agrees with this, and why would they? And you wind up the penultimate song is called Postmortem, and it has this end part, a very, very fast punk section, kind of hardcore punk, um, which is evil as hell, with Tom shouting, "Do you want to die?" And then it goes into Raining Blood, which along with Angel of Death is Slayer's signature song without a doubt. It's globally recognized, this song. It's awfully dark and satanic. Raining Blood is the idea that the devil is sitting in a cavern in hell, and a bunch of um, sinners are impaled on stalactites in the ceiling, and they are raining blood. Simple Dungeons and Dragons level kind of imagery, but so powerful, and it's such a horrendously fast, sort of blindingly frightening song, and it ends with this massive sort of rainstorm, doesn't it? The sound of a thunderstorm, and the whole thing is 28 minutes long. It's just 28 minutes for 10 songs, and it's crazy. Um, and anyone who hasn't heard this, who's watching this, I can't believe there's anyone, right? You have to go and rectify that. You have to go and take a few hours, just go and sit somewhere and listen to it repeatedly, and then you'll understand why people rave about Raining Blood all the time. Slayer have never matched it. No thrash metal band has ever matched it, apart from the possible exception um, of Master of Puppets by Metallica. It won't ever be equaled, because it can't be equal now, because we're at a different time in metal now. There are heavier albums, there have been faster albums, there have been more evil albums, there have been arguably more important albums, I guess. But there was no Rain in Blood when Rain in Blood came out. That's the point. Um, it's terrifying, it's brilliant, it's exhilarating, it's so exciting, it's so life affirming as well. There's a kind of a weird joy in it as well, which goes completely against everything I just said about how it's frightening and aggressive and spiky and pointy. It's fucking flawless.
Well said. I don't think I could really add anything to that. I would say, to the point of it being only 28 minutes long, it is really, there is not and maybe this is Rick Rubin's influence, or maybe just where the band was at the time, there is just not a wasted note. It's like, everything is right to the point. Like you
And
said.
I can't name many albums like that.
Yeah,
Really.
it is just, there's not a wasted second on it. I also really like, it seems like in the Rick Rubin era with these albums, this happens where I sort of think of them in pairs, like the way Angel of Death goes into Piece by Piece, the
Yep.
way Altar of Sacrifice goes into Jesus Saves, that riff at the beginning of that go go gong gong.
Well, those songs do literally join, don't they? So
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
that's a good point.
They flow right into each other. And then of course, Post Mortem and Raining Blood. And I've told the story when people ask me what's the best concert I've ever been to. And I would say the greatest concert experience was Vok in 2010, seeing Slayer. They were the last band of the night. So everybody, 100,000 plus people. When those thunderclap, the rain and thunder started at the beginning of that song, and then boom, 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 and the da 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 da, everybody started going crazy.
It's
And
an
then when they went
incredible
into
moment.
the place, I thought that the ground was just opening up and the world was caving in on itself or something. It was
I'm
just
getting goosebumps just hearing this.
exactly. It was the
I'm
most
the same.
powerful thing.
I'm the same. Now, I was at their London show in 2004 when they first played Rain in Blood all the way through for the first
Oh
time.
yeah.
Now, not only did we not know that was coming, I can't think of any band who played any album all the way through like that before that. Now, reason tells me there must have been, right? But I can't think of it, right? I cannot think of any band before 2004 that played a record all the way through. So they played whatever it was, I don't know, 8 songs. And then they went off for a minute, which is kind of weird. And then they came back, went to Angel of Death. And I thought, okay, that's cool. Angel of Death. It's usually at the end of the set, you know. And it finished. And to my complete surprise, they went into Piece by Piece. Now, they never do Piece by Piece. I don't know if they'd ever done it for years and years and years. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Wow, Piece by Piece. How amazing. And then they went into Necrophobic, right?
And you knew something was up.
And I went, oh man, no, no, no. This can't be happening, right? This cannot be happening. I'm literally covered in goosebumps as I tell you this story, John. Even though it's 18 years ago. And I stood there and I was with a friend of mine who wasn't really into Slayer that much. And she could see me like start to freak out and sort of was laughing at it because I was going, wait, this can't be happening. This cannot be happening, right? And because I hadn't ever seen them play Necrophobic before. I didn't know that they could, right? And that ended. And of course, it's Altar of Sacrifice, right? And now it's obvious what's happening. And I just stood there, man, and I came home probably about midnight, 1 in the morning. And back then, I used to be a member of a news group called alt.music.slayer, right? And I don't know if you know what this is or if anyone knows what these are. Back then, we had these news groups, right? And I went on it and I was literally shaking and I typed, I've just seen Slayer play Raining Blood all the way through. And these were diehard Slayer fans, mostly Americans, actually. And they went, no, you didn't. Fuck off. And I went, no, I just saw Slayer play Raining Blood all the way through. And they were like, yeah, good night, Joel. You're drunk. You know, and then, of course, it hit the news the next day. And in 2004, you know, you had the web, you could get news. And all these Americans started coming back to me saying, you fucker, you, an English guy, saw this happen before we did. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then the Slayer did it again at the same venue the following night, which was Saturday. So then it was obvious that it was a thing. And to this day, it was the biggest adrenaline surge I've ever had at a gig. If I had it now, I'd probably die. Um, I cannot tell you what that was like, John. I mean, you know what it was like because of the conversation we're having. For someone as big a fan of Slayer as me, as ridiculous a fanboy of Rain and Blood as I am, to see them do that on the first night they did it anywhere. I don't mean they'd done it a bunch of times. It was the first time they did it anywhere, and they subsequently did it like 100 times, didn't they? And it became quite an obvious thing. And then Metallica did Master of Puppets all the way through, and suddenly you got millions of bands doing albums all the way through. I'm telling you, I will never, ever, ever forget that. It was insane.
Fantastic story. And the fact that it was a surprise like that is probably what
Yeah,
really
they didn't pre-announce it, right?
amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, well, then that leads us to 1988 and South of Heaven. This is also produced by Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
There's some deliberate, slower tempos on this. They tried to vary it up a little bit. We get a cover of Judas Priest's Dissident Aggressor. What are your thoughts on this one?
Oh man, well, this to me is where they leveled off quality-wise, and actually not leveled off because this is not as good an album as Rain in Blood. It's still great. I got so much time for it. If they'd gone straight from Hello Waits to South of Heaven, they'd still be a great band. They just wouldn't be that band, right? So no, South of Heaven's good. It's just a professional album now. Rain and Blood was freakily. It's like an anomaly. Rain and Blood shouldn't have been that good. They should not have been able to go from Hello Waits to Rain and Blood like that, but they somehow did. Like the magic happened, witchcraft happened. You know, like the earth moved. Something very strange happened. So to go from Rain and Blood to South of Heaven was less seismic. Well, seismic's the wrong word, but it's because what I mean is it's less of a giant change. It's a good record. Um, they did these. I'm looking at the track listing now. They did these 3 or 4 mid-tempo tracks, right? So South of Heaven is creepy. I like it because it's scary. It's a good song. It's not my go-to Slayer song because I tend to listen to fast Slayer songs. If I want to hear slow music, I'll go and listen to some jazz or some rock or some funk or something. All the other good stuff that I like. But nonetheless, it's creepy. Now, Silent Scream. There's two truly fast songs on this, and they are Silent Scream and Ghosts of War. Now, Ghosts of War is by far my favorite song on this. It is, I mean, it's one of those career best songs. From now on, every Slayer record had 1 or 2 amazing songs. Rain and Blood had 10 amazing songs, right? So, but nonetheless, that's not to diminish the records that came. For me, Ghosts of War, I can't talk enough about Ghosts of War. I love it. My son's into it. We drive to school like listening to Ghosts of War, which is funny, I guess. Um, so Silent Scream was kind of an inferior thrash song to me. I didn't really get it. I didn't really approve of the lyrics particularly. They're about abortion. It's kind of anti-abortion, isn't it? But again, it's like Angel of Death, and it's not specifically anti-abortion. It's talking about abortion. So it's difficult. It's a difficult listen, you know, especially nowadays with the sort of more enlightened views we have on these political issues, right? Um, Live Undead is boring until you get to the last 45 seconds, which is mind-blowingly fast and aggressive. The mix is really weird. It is all really drums, you know, and but nonetheless, if you turn it up and play it loud, it's good. I interviewed Dave Lombardo not long ago, and he told me how shocked he was when he heard the final mix of this record, because he felt the drums were so high, he felt naked, you know what I mean, like put on the spot. He wasn't expecting it to be like that. I guess he didn't go to the mix sessions, you know, probably Kerry took care of those. And then Behind the Crooked Cross, Mandatory Suicide, I think are quite boring, and I've had a lot of shit over the years about this. People saying, "What, we don't like Mandatory Suicide? Amazing!" And because I remember it came out as the first single from this record, right, in '88, and I remember hearing it. Oh, this is exciting! New Slayer thing. I've just heard Raining Blood. Wow, well, this is going to be so cool. And it just struck me as a bit boring. It's a bit slow. I never expected a Slayer song to be boring. After having heard Raining Blood, so that's my view of Mandatory Suicide. You hear it all the time. It's like, oh god, it's there like I was going to say it's their Enter Sandman. It's not their Enter Sandman, but it's whatever fairly boring mid-tempo Metallica song Metallica always play. I can't think of one. Read Between the Lies is sort of disposable. Behind the Crooked Cross is disposable. Cleanse the Soul. I kind of like Cleanse the Soul. Kerry hates it because it starts with a happy riff, which goes it is quite cheerful, and then it gets really heavy after that. I cannot stand that Judas Priest cover. I thought, how fucking lazy is this? You're literally one of the best bands in the world, and you throw in a cover of the Judas Priest song. Why? It's not even a good Judas Priest song, I think. No, that bugs me. It still annoys me that they put that on there, which is pathetic because how many years ago? And then Spill the Blood is actually a creepy, good end to the song. I thoroughly approve of Spill the Blood. So to sum up my views of South of Heaven, which is a mixed view, I love Ghosts of War. I love the end part of Live Undead. I do like South of Heaven and Spill the Blood. The rest of it I'm a bit bored by, but the bits that I like, I obsessively love, if you know what I mean. So that gives it a thumbs up in my book, basically, despite all the horrible things I just said about it.
Yeah, I actually like it because, again, this sort of goes back to Show No Mercy. Me coming from the Maiden, Priest, my first band.
Yeah,
I like it
there you
when
go.
they mix up when Slayer mixes up the tempo a little
Yeah,
bit, when they do play some slower things. I love the song South of Heaven. I think it's just the way it keeps accelerating and it gets more and more like crazy as it moves along. I think that's
I'm not sure
fantastic.
it accelerates. Well, I guess it does. Yeah, it goes.
The energy, it's sort of, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, it starts to get more busier and busier as it goes along until he's screaming.
Well, the intensity builds for
Yeah,
sure.
the intensity. Silent
Oh, and
Scream.
sorry to butt in. I like the long feedback ending. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's really cool. I
yeah,
love that. There are
yeah,
a couple of other records, aren't there? There's one on there's a Cannibal Corpse album that has that that creepy
yeah.
ending.
And then
Yeah.
it goes into Silent Scream, which again, this is another one of these like two songs together to
Mm.
go really well together for me.
How do
Uh,
you find the lyrics of Silent Scream?
uh, like you mentioned earlier, I don't pay a whole heck of a lot of attention to Slayer lyrics, to be honest with you. I sort of take them as like
Mm.
did just maybe individual lines, or I've never really sat down and I sort of think of them. It's more about the riffs. It's more about just sort of the mood of the whole thing, just however it adds to
I
the.
get it. Like I said earlier, I'm not sure applying critical faculties to the lyrics is really worth doing. Um, really, because they're not really designed to stand up to that kind of rigorous analysis. But
Yeah,
nonetheless, that's what I've always tried to do, and not always satisfactorily.
yeah. Then Live Undead, Mandatory Suicide, and Ghosts of War. I like those on this album too. So All right, so that leads us into the last one that we're talking about today, which is 1990 and Seasons in the Abyss. Now, Rick
Mm.
Rubin leaves and starts his own label, Deaf American Records. So this is on Deaf American Records. It's the last album with Dave Lombardo until he returns in 2006. What are your thoughts on this one? Kind of wrapping up an era. This is why I decided to stop at this one because
Yeah,
it's kind of, a lot of people would agree that it's sort of the wraps up the end of an era for them, and then they would have a live album after this. What's the
Live
name?
Intrusion.
Yeah.
No, Live Intrusion is
Did,
the video. Decade of
Decade of
Aggression
Decadence.
live album.
Yeah, Decade of Decadence. So this
No,
album
no, Decade of Aggression.
of
Decade of
aggression.
Decadence is by Motley Crue.
Right.
You're a Motley Crue fan. You just gave it away.
Don't tell anybody. No. Yeah, so this sort of wraps up, the end of an era, if you will, for Slayer.
It,
So
it completely wraps up an era. I mean, not only for Slayer, but for thrash metal and for metal, right? And there's three levels to this. So, okay, first off, this was their first really, really professional production. So this sounds beautiful. I mean, Metallica never had a sound as good as this. It is beautifully produced. You can hear a bit of bass. Drums are kind of tamed. The guitars are really heavy and crunchy. The vocals are good. Production-wise, you cannot fault this record, right? It's amazing. Song-wise, yeah, they got back to speed a bit. I guess I only really listened to, I'm looking at it now, three songs from this record. And they're the first ones, War Ensemble, Hello Point, and Born of Fire. The rest of it, I get. I can't listen to the title track. It was their attempt to do like a big radio hit. Um, it's this came out before Enter Sandman, but it still reminds me of Enter Sandman. Like kind of an MTV song. I I, I don't know what do I feel about this. I feel I should grow up and stop being pissed off at Slayer for recording a commercial song attempt. Tom tries to sing, and he tries to sing in the chorus, and he can't sing. He shouldn't try and sing. He should do what he does best, which is bark in a percussive manner. That's what makes him so amazing. So I can't listen to Seasons in the Abyss as a song, right? So I just can't. The rest of it is kind of all right. I will say that War Ensemble, yeah, great way to start a record. It has this cool bit after the first or second chorus. It's just a riff that drives me crazy. The first solo, the backing riff goes. Quite often with Slayer, I don't listen to the solo. I listen to the riff behind the solo because I never really take the solos that seriously. But the riffs are really cool behind any given solo that you care to think of with Slayer. And then Hollow Point, again, I mean, I've talked about Angel of Death, talked about Silent Scream. Politically, this one's a little bit dodgy because it's about gun worship. Hollow Point. It's about, and again, God, we're not going to go into gun rights, right? But that's what this song encourages you to talk about because it's about the mechanism of a gun and how a gun can kill you. But the song itself is insanely good, right? It's stupidly fast. Born of Fire is good old devilry. I read they wanted to stop singing about the devil because it was so childish, but Rick Rubin told them not to because that's what their fans like. It could be bullshit. I read it somewhere. I don't know if it's true, but it makes sense to me because there's not much of that elsewhere. Born of Fire is great, but it's totally fantasy novel, 14-year-old boy kind of playing Dungeons and Dragons again. But that's part of the fun. So three absolutely killer songs. I'm okay with the rest of it. Do I ever listen to it? I probably regard this record as about as good as South of Heaven. Are we going to do marks out of 10 or something like that at the end of this?
We're going to rank them. We'll rank the albums here at the
I
end.
like that. So that's what I think of Seasons in the Abyss. So just to finish off on what I was saying about its context, Slayer peaked commercially. Okay, Slayer peaked commercially for the first time with this, right? After this, the whole of the 1990s, no one was listening to thrash metal anymore. It was all about new metal and Korn and Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine, until they came back in the 2000s with some faster music, and then they did their final tour over the last 5 years, made a ton of money. But before all that stuff happened, this was their peak commercially because the Seasons in the Abyss song actually did do quite well on MTV, and they did the Clash of the Titans tour with Megadeth and Anthrax, which I saw in late 1990. I saw the British leg in Scotland, which was Suicidal Tendencies opening and Testament. then Megadeth, and then Slayer headlining, and it was the most amazing show. And they recorded the London show of that leg for the Decade of Aggression live album, not Decade of Decadence. And that was just their peak, incredible. Apparently, they asked Metallica to do that tour as a kind of a proto Big Four of thrash tour. Metallica wouldn't do it because they didn't need to. So yeah, and then after this, they did do the live record. They did yeah, Divine Intervention was 94, wasn't it? So quite a long time in the future after this. So yeah, it is the end of an era for Slayer. It's a good record. It's a well produced record. I only listened to 3, 4 songs of it. There you go. But
Yeah,
they're great songs.
I'm the same way with this. The second side of this album really doesn't do anything for me. It really sort of just,
Even though it has Hollow Point and Born of Fire on it.
yeah, it just doesn't live up to. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that to me, it just seems like they're starting to run out of ideas or they're not exactly sure where to go. But
Yeah.
it starts off really strong for me. I love War Ensemble, the way that just comes 100 miles an
Talk
hour.
about how to start an album. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. I mean,
Straight in there. Yeah.
right
Killer.
in. Blood Red and Dead Skin Mask. I like those. So,
Oh, I hate Dead Skin Mask so much. I forgot to say, I cannot stand that record. Me and my friends call it Foreskin Mask. It's
I
pathetic.
was wondering why you
That's
didn't
the
say anything
level.
about it. I was going to say, I don't think he's going to like that.
No, I forgot. I even forgot it was on there. I hate it so much.
You've
That's
wiped it from
Foreskin Mask. That is
your
the
memory.
childish level of humor that I have about this. I should apologize to your viewers. I am less pathetic than that most of the time.
All right, so I'm going to rank them here, how
All
I
right.
put them. Now, I feel bad putting this. I'm going to go from least favorite to favorite. Now, I say this all the time. When I say least favorite, doesn't mean we don't like it. It just
Hmm.
means that when we're ranking it here in the midst of these
All right.
albums, somebody has to come in last. There's always somebody in the comments. How could you not like this? It's not. I like all these records. I just like some a little bit better than others.
Disclaimer is noted.
Right. I feel bad putting this here, but I put it here because it's an EP.
Hmm.
So Haunting the
Only
Chapel.
got 3 songs on it. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Now you're not going to like me for this one, but next least favorite for me is Hell Awaits. I know.
John,
Sorry about
John, John, you've let me down.
that. All right. Next is Seasons in the Abyss. For the reasons I mentioned before, that it just seems to run out of gas for me.
Then South of Heaven.
And then where am I here? Nope. I have
Rain and Blood. Oh, Show No Mercy.
Show No
Yeah, yeah.
Mercy again.
I
I think
completely forgot
because of
about that
my
record.
early metal roots here, that lands at number 3. Number 2 is South of Heaven. I mean, really, these are, now we're talking, okay, and then it has to be this, right? This is, like you said, just sort of a
Bit of a
crowning
cliche, isn't it? It's a
thrash
bit of a
metal.
cliche, but it's just so good.
Yeah,
It's ridiculously good.
I almost was thinking, maybe I was thinking, but I was like, no, this is it's sort of this pinnacle of thrash metal, if you will. It's
Right?
one of these albums that is truly. You mentioned Master of Puppets. For me, those are like, put these 500 years from now. This will be an album that you know preserved in time somewhere for people to go back, say this was thrash metal. you know
50 years, maybe. I don't know about 500, but we'll see.
All right, so how would you
No,
rank?
I think that's all very reasonable. Let me think. All right, yeah, I agree with you that Haunting has to be the last one because maybe we shouldn't even include it, but it's a great EP, but it's just an EP, right? So yeah, that can go at the end. Show No Mercy is my 4th. No, actually, Show No Mercy. Oh man, yeah, no, it's my 4th. I was going to say actually put it in 5th because I love Haunting the Chapel and Chemical Warfare so much. So technically, 2/3 of the Haunting EP is amazing, right? Which I can't say about Show No Mercy, but that's this thinking is weak. All right, so 5th is Haunting, 5th is Show No Mercy.
We got 6 to choose from. So
Sorry,
six is
sixth is
Haunting.
Haunting, 5th is Show No Mercy, which leaves Seasons. All right, fine. I know the obvious 1 and 2. I know what they are. So the question is, do I put Seasons or South in 4th position? So South of Heaven has Ghost of War, the ending, the end of Live Undead. Pathetic, isn't it? It does have Spill the Blood, and it does have South of Heaven. Do I like Ghost of War that much? I do. I do. I fucking love Ghost of War. It's ridiculously good, that song. And then Seasons has just those 3 songs that I really like. So I'm probably going. All your viewers are going, "Oh, Joel, get on with it. We're busy here." You know what I mean? Wasting our time. Who cares whether it's fourth or third? All right, I'm going with South of Heaven fourth, Seasons in the Abyss third, Hell Awaits second, Rain and Blood first. So, and I think that's right. I mean, if I were to give these marks out of 10 and Rain and Blood got 10, then Hell Awaits would get like 9. You know what I mean? It's that close for me. But there's a couple of bits that are a bit boring on Hell Awaits and just go on that could be edited out, and there's none of that on Rain and Blood. So that's my view.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'd like to thank Joel for joining us here at the Lair today. This was a fascinating discussion on Slayer. You guys let us know in the comments down below. What are your favorite songs from these albums? What do you think of these albums? How would you rank these albums? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you search for Joel. He's all over all the social media platforms, so you can find out what he's up to. And you got any future plans or anything you're working on that you want to share with everybody?
Yeah, there's loads of books coming out. Lately I tend to write the autobiographies of people. It sounds weird. You write someone's autobiography. They hire me to write their autobiography with them. You know what I mean? So I'll sit down with them, and I did it with Max Cavalera. I did it with David Ellefson, Glenn Matlock of the Sex Pistols. You know, tons and tons of people. The next two people that I'm working with to do their autobiographies, or the next three, are really, really well-known heavy metal people. I'm doing books as well that are not from the metal scene. In fact, with pop artists that are so poppy, you're probably going to be like, what the hell is Joel thinking of? But they're awesome. So yeah, because all these things aren't ready, I can't really talk about them. But there's loads of books coming. Also go to Bass Player Magazine. I'm a freelance writer. Do a bit of teaching. It all adds up to a career.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us here. And
thank you for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
And thank you, everybody out there. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.